Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. We have an incredible guest on tonight. In about an hour and a half or so, he will be taking the stage at Crooner's Nightclub in Fridley. He's one of the greatest singers I know personally, and we've known each other on and off since the late 1970s, because that's how we roll age-wise. Bruce Henry he's an educator, an artist, a performer. He's performed in concert with the likes of Roberta Flack, Natalie Cole, Stefan Grappelli, Ramsey Lewis, Doc Severinsen, The Sounds of Blackness, Bobby McFerrin, and more. And he's got a great ensemble tonight at Crooner's, and we've never really sat down and got to know each other like we're going to be able to do tonight. But welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour, Mr. Bruce Henry.
Thank you so much, Paul. Glad to be here. Excited to be here.
Yeah, now you are currently living back in Chicago where you kind of came of age, correct?
Yes, I am. I live right downtown in the middle of the city.
And you were, because you were not cool enough, you're so cool, you were born in West Point, Mississippi, home of the great bluesman Howlin' Wolf.
Yes. And they were down there in Clay County, Mississippi. Yeah.
So you've got some really, at least in the bloodline, some really deep blues roots going through your soul.
Yeah, I do. Just man, the blues is the root. The blues is root, and everything else is the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
So blues it's just running through so much of the music that I love and enjoy, that we love and enjoy,
and
including gospel.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, you look at so many of the those first original blues cats, Son House, Skip James, and the rest. A lot of those guys, when they weren't playing the devil's music, were actually preaching the gospel.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, talk about now.
We used to call them deathbed ministers. You ever heard that term, deathbed ministers?
No, but I hope I don't see one soon.
people who later on in life start preaching.
Oh, that's what. Okay. I got it. So tell us now a little bit about your mom and dad. They both influenced you musically, and how you got from Mississippi to Chicago.
Yeah, well, the Mississippi, my dad is gone now. He's Booker T. Henry. He was Booker T. Henry. My mother, I just saw her a little while ago. Bobby Henry lives on the South Side, and my father was a beautiful baritone, and he played piano. So his piano style, it was almost like a time machine, transport you right back to the early 1950s. So his style never moved past After Hours, 1 O'Clock Jump, Count Basie, like in there. A little bit of the Kansas City blues and swing. So that's what he sounded like for the rest of his life. And
that's what? That's good. That's a great place to be.
Yeah.
Why you don't have to move on from there if you're doing it right.
That's right. So he was a big influence. He was always playing the piano, and all of my life he played on the gospel. And I guess when he was younger, he played with a group in Mississippi, a swing band called themselves the Harlem Swing Cats. And they were a big band playing Basie and Ellington, traveling from the Florida Panhandle, Alabama, Mississippi, like that. But by the time I was born, he came home from the Korean War, and he said, he said that life expectancy wasn't too long for a piano player at juke joints. So he left that behind and was a bus driver at CTA.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So when did you started singing in church, Bruce Henry, when you were just a little boy, right?
Yeah, I was about 5 years old, the first time I remember at Pilgrim Rest Missionary Baptist Church, and so I'm on the west side, right across the street from what's now where the Bulls play and the Blackhawks.
Okay.
They call it United Center. And it's almost funny. You go over there. It used to be a residential neighborhood, and you go over there now. It's just that church and surrounded in a sea of parking lots for the stadium. So that's where I started singing when I was 5, and they would push you up there, man. They would call you from your seat just impromptu, and you had to be ready. And so it started out there. A couple hundred. 250 people in there, so it was a nice size to get used to singing at age 5. So,
right. Well, I've seen a couple of those live shows and the talent shows at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, and I go, my God, you've got to be on your game when you're playing to a room full of black people that know their stuff. And I'm talking as a white guy, but I'm sure even as a young African-American man, you had to be on your toes because you had some serious ears out there in the audience in the church.
You did, and they were great people, the Barrett sisters and people like that. Gospel legends would come as guest performers to our church. So, it was pretty impressive. My father's a great singer, so I never wanted to let them down. But that church, Paul, the church. What I like about the church was they were all pulling for you.
Yeah, right.
On the edge of their seat, just pulling for the little kid, the new person. So it was a great way to grow, and they suffered through your mistakes.
Yeah.
I melted down once, and I never forgot that. I melted down when I was 7, and now I get flashbacks of that. I pull it together quick.
Now, just tell us a little bit about that, because I've had a couple of times. There was one time, this wasn't musical, but I was at a speech tournament in International Falls, Minnesota, and it was just like comedy improvisation or something like that. And I whizzed through all the preliminaries, and then I got in front of everybody, which was like 600-700 people. There was high schools from all over northern Minnesota, and I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing, and I literally walked up and had to kind of walk off in shame. So I know how it's still now. I mean, that was 50 years ago. It still bothers me, but if it won't bother you too much, tell us what happened when you melted down.
Oh, well, it was that thing, so we had this program, and after this was in the afternoon, like on Sunday, we were in church all day, to way after dark. We were in church all day. And so they had this night program they called BTU, Baptist Training Union. So you really was like a Sunday school at night, but they also had music. And that's when the pastor, in this particular time, the pastor called me up to sing, but that wasn't enough. He chose a song, too, and you just had to be ready. And I didn't really know the song that well, so I got up there, and I never forget. I could look over, I could see my mother. You can do it, Bruce. You can do it. And I look over my father. Boy, don't you embarrass this family. And my eyes are going back and forth between them, and I just started crying and Pastor said, oh, that's all right. That's all right. But I never did that again, knock on wood. It never happened again. If I don't remember words now, I just write them.
Well, but there's not a performer around or alive or who's been alive, who's not with us, that at some point hasn't done that themselves. That's part of the stepping stones.
That is so true. I never want to feel that again. So, not that I haven't made mistakes before, but I try my best to be prepared.
Before we're going to have the great Bruce Henry on the Wall and Power Radio Hour all night tonight, and he's such a fascinating character with such a great musical history and just a really good soul. We're going to cover as much of 65 years of life in in an hour as we can tonight. But Bruce, before we get too far along, tell us about the show tonight at the at Crooner's Nightclub. You've got a phenomenal band behind you.
Yeah, I'm a lucky man.
Yeah.
I look around sometime on stage and I go, thank you.
Yeah.
The show tonight is it's a musical celebration of African American history. It's informed. The music selections and the stories will be informed by the work I've been doing in history as a historian for many years on the history of African American music and different genres and forms. So I have with me, I guess I call them young lions, because oftentimes when I play, I have a little bit older crew, and I call them Wild Horses Run Free. But this group is some folks that are on the younger side, but they're titans. So Kavi Raj is on piano. Kevin Washington, he's young to me, but he's been playing with me forever. And Jeff Bailey, the great Jeff Bailey, is on bass. Yeah. And Omar Abdul Kareem is playing trumpet, and he's making quite a name for himself on the trumpet as a composer and performer. And the story with Omar, I played with his father in the 1970s. And so the last time I was at Crooner's, they came up on stage, and I almost lost it seeing those generations together.
Circle of Life.
Circle of Life.
We've got Bruce Henry. We're going to hear a song. Here's called Uptown Blues. Then be back for the whole show on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Got the money, got the go-kart and the beans, got this longing in my heart, girl, just to be with you again. 'Cause it seems I don't have nothing since the last time I saw you. Come on and kill these uptown blues. Kill these uptown blues. Sidewalk cafes, see the crowded avenue, see the city alive with people just walking 2 by 2. Every scene I see reminds me of the things we used to do. Come on and kill these uptown blues. Kill these uptown blues.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Messa. My guest for the whole show tonight, soul-singing, blues-rocking, hip-hop grooving cat named Bruce Henry. Bruce, I was listening to, it's been, I can't remember the last time I heard you sing live. It was over 20 years ago. It might have been at the Dakota. Now, were you doing some gigs with my, our mutual, the great goddess, and our friend Mary Harris?
Yeah, we've gigged together before a number of different times. Yeah. I don't know if that was the last time I saw you. Your memory might be better than mine, but I whenever I get a chance, I like to work with her. Yeah.
So now, tell us about. We were talking, had a little pre-interview the other night. Tell us about your first trip to Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah. My first trip. It's a story, you know. It's a story. So I was in Wisconsin, at the University of Wisconsin in Whitewater.
Okay.
And I was down there going to school with David Wright. He's David Wright III, saxophone player, and plays with the Sounds of Blackness. Been with them for decades. And David was the big man on campus down there, and I was like a sophomore or something. And I had never sung with a band before.
Yeah.
So I got invited to sing with the band there, actually on my 18th birthday, so it'll be 50 years ago this July.
Wow.
And shortly after that, we came up. We auditioned to be in a band. David and I auditioned to be in a band led by the great John Tenney, and Jay Young's was in that band, Jim Gauthier, fabulous people. Well, we auditioned. We were going to come up. The deal was we were going to come up, and we're going to do jazz. And it's a beautiful album. It's still one of my favorite albums. My first album with these guys was called Solstice, and all original jazz. And but by our day job was going to be doing Boss Skaggs and Earth, Wind and Fire on the road.
Right.
That's how we were going to pay for the jazz with the blue jumpsuits and everything.
Sure.
And so I left college, and we were going to come up here, and we were going to sign this contract. I believe the first contract was like for 50 weeks or 52 weeks of solid work, traveling to Murdo, South Dakota, Watertown, just Waterloo, Watertown, all of it.
Sure, right.
In these pink and in the blue jumpsuits. So the day we got here, and we met the agent. And he met us at our house. We called it Rancid Oaks. It was 3533 4th Avenue South. That's the first thing I saw, straight from the highway to 3533 across the street from Central's football field.
Yeah.
At the time. And agent came over, and he looked around the room, and John was our leader, and John Penny. And he said, John, I told you that this band needed to be 4 whites and 3 blacks.
Wow.
And we had it the reverse, 4 blacks, 3 whites. He tore up the contract.
Oh, man.
Tore up the contract. Half of us wanted to take care of him, and half of us wanted to get him out the house safely. And here we are. Here I am. I dropped out of college, and I learned the lesson, signed the contract first.
Right.
But that's how I got to Minneapolis.
Well, that temporary setback really created a path and yielded many pathways for you to do all the things you're doing today, not only performing, you're educating. And tell us more about this show, a little bit of what's going to be played tonight at Crooners, that you also present to universities and colleges and classrooms. Tell us exactly kind of the curriculum of what you're performing tonight.
Okay. So it's a long time ago. It's talking about Minneapolis and the ways it's been good to me. I think this must be over 40, well, it has to be 42, 43 years ago. A friend of mine, Debbie Bieber Arnsberger, was a citizen, a journalist, and a friend, and she contacted me to write a booklet that would be handed out by the Minneapolis Park System at performance called The Evolution of African American Music. And so with her help, we put together the first booklet, which covers the 400-year history, so from West African music influences on a timeline up to the current music of today. So that was the first crack at it. And then I went on a lifetime of study and inspired by people like Professor Yolanda Williams, she's out in Glenwood now, but has taught at universities there for a long time. One of my favorite mentors and a great scholar. And then the great Dr. Geneva Southall, and among other people I studied with. And then I rewrote a curriculum that was designed for like 7th to 8th graders. But it's gotten a lot of play. Actually, people by the curriculum for their college classes even. And so the curriculum is written in 20 stages. So we just go on a timeline to give an idea just of some of the stages. So we start with West African folk music, then we go into, American folk music. African American folk music would include work songs, cries, and hollers. Then we break it into the blues and a couple of different segments on the blues, so 2 different stages on the early blues and later blues. Same thing with jazz. We talk about black military music, black experience in classical music, going on the timeline to soul, jazz, rock, till we get up to the music today, and then even the evolution beyond our borders, how people around the world have music been inspired. So what runs along with the timeline, like for me, I love history equal to music, equal to singing. I love it.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, how do I get people, because 99% of the people I meet say they hate history. So how do you make it fun? And so there's so many lessons beyond the music. I like to say it's not just the history of music. It's not the history of the music. The music is the music of our history.
Right. Oh, totally.
So yeah.
I can
so much of the black experience that can be explained by the music that was created at that time or was developed because, like, say, the blues in Chicago, the Great Migration is an event in history, but there's no blues in Chicago without the Great Migration.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been saying that for years. You can literally chart the course of American history by its music, and certainly by its blues music. From the plantations to the cities, the itinerant musicians that travel around, and I'm talking black and white, and and then phonographs, radios, record players. Another big advancement for both black and white musicians was when Sears started selling guitars. You could get a guitar in Sears catalogs. So you got American commerce, segregation, integration, the great industrial age. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I really wish I could be there tonight. Tell us, if I could, I hope you've been up for a while. So now if you're giving an example of what sort of chants or little vocalizations would you hear in Africa 400 years ago? Can you mimic any of that?
Yeah. So one of the things I love about it is, man, don't get me started on this. We'll run out of time, but because I just love the story so much. So one of the things that I love about it is, you have to be careful when you say when you make generalizations. But generally speaking, so much of African music was spiritual in nature, and the idea is that through singing and playing a song, that you could be joined by spirits, So here's the song that it would be done with drums and multiple voices, but I'm gonna do the best I can. Echu, elekbara ye, elekbara mofolibale, elekbara ye, echu, elekbara ye. Elekbara mofalibale, elekbara ye, elekbara mofalibale, elekbara ye. Doing that with drummers and dancing, we probably would do that song for a while.
Wow, I'm so delighted you did it. I'm really honored to hear that. What have you learned through all of this study about yourself, Bruce Henry? Has it given you a deep intellectual or spiritual or physical or insight into who you are as a human being?
Who I am as a human being, I've learned about my Africanness because so much of the African American experience here in America has been about the powers that be trying to erase any cultural connection to the past, because a cultural connection to the past and to a cultural connection with people like you can lead to revolution, can lead to progress. You know, so ever since the beginning of being on the ships and people speaking the same tongue being separated, and ever since, 400 years ago when people singing a song like that I just sang was out loud, or the making it illegal throughout the country to play African drums. So what I've learned by studying this curriculum is looking at, which is one of the reasons I studied the curriculum, is like when I went to the Conservatory of Music, and studied, European music, which I love still to this day. But here I am. This is what they're telling me is this is the official story of music. This is it. And I'm going like, man, I hear different things outside of that model every Sunday. All day long. So you're telling me, I'm sorry, cut you off. You're telling me that what my culture and where it came from is not valued. It doesn't matter. In fact, it doesn't even exist, or it's primitive and it's crude. And so what the curriculum has done has taught me, or studying the curriculum has taught me to value that and to see and to be proud of how, even though, most of us have never been to the continent of Africa, but how much we still operate under those cultural parameters, how we praise God, how we make music, how we make melismas with our voice, the blue notes in our voice, the fact that I'm going to get up in the audience and say, go ahead, man. That all comes from a place.
Right.
So it's taught me to celebrate who I am and to see those connections. And if one other thing is like, as I've gone along this journey, I was like, oh my God, this is just a part of it. So the African diaspora, there are connections between what I did at church down in Peru with African ancestors and descendants of Africa. So that African diaspora has spread these same cultural values all over the world, and we have connections. That's one of the biggest takeaways I've got.
That's brilliant, Bruce Henry. And if you want to experience the man in the flesh tonight at Crooners in Fridley, or if you're getting this message a little too late, go to his website, which is what? What's your website, Bruce? BruceHenry.com?
No, BruceAHenry.com. Yep.
All right, go to
Bruce. Just put the A in there, you'll find me.
This has been delightful. We're going to take a little break and be back for one more set with the great Bruce Henry on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Black cowboys, where are you today? You know the world ain't heard a single word of what you had to say. Our brothers and sisters ain't seen a word on one dang page about a tale of love and glory from a long forgotten age. Listen up, y'all, won't you hear my story? Listen to a tale of love, hatred, and glory. I was born in western Missouri. Papa was Jed and my mama was Nori. I say Papa was a hard-working blacksmithing man, while me and Mama work all day tilling the land. We found out, though times got rough, that if you stretched your spine a little, there was always enough. Hey, yippee-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi-yi. But then one sad day, I recall, some people came over the hill. You know, they spilled my mammy and pappy's blood to help pay for someone else's bill. But it was somehow by the grace of my God that I was allowed to live. I headed on out to seek my fortune without the strength or courage to forgive. You know, I was a big, strong, strapping boy, despite my lack of years. I earned my pay working for the man, running and roping the steers. From Tulsa to Abilene, I rode on despite my fears. You know, I had myself a real good time between the rednecks, the ticks, and the tears. Woo! I jump and walk and jump and walk and jump and walk. I jump and walk and jump and walk. I jump and walk and jump and walk. Black cowboy, y'all. Yeehaw! Yeehaw! Thank you. Many things he told me about fools and kings. On this he said to me, the greatest thing you will ever learn. You got to give love, got to give love, and give it in return. To be loved in return. To be loved, you got to give some love in return.
Welcome back to the third set of the Wall and Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. We just heard my guest, Bruce Henry, sing a little bit of the song popularized by Nat King Cole, The Great Nature Boy. Boy, that sounded so good. Bruce, when did you record that?
That one, it's on an album from about 10 years ago, but I recorded it. I stuck that song in there from, it was a live BBC broadcast from the early 90s.
Really?
That night. Yeah, we did it. I guess they said over 110 million people were listening that night.
Wow.
It was recorded down at old Ruby's Cabaret.
Right. Ruby's Cabaret.
The BBC came to town to capture Minneapolis.
Woo! Well, you know, and speaking, and I want to get back to more of your Minneapolis experiences because you've really played with, you know, the greats and the soon-to-be greats. But tell us, you've been to 5 continents. Tell us about your travels around the world, Bruce Henry.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love adventure. I'm thankful for music for that, providing me some opportunities. So, I performed in London a few times and been to Paris. As I would walk around Paris, I never would have thought that I would be there, you know, a dozen times. I never would have thought. The first time I was there was like a dream. And so I got to know Paris very well and I actually have some dear lifelong friends over there, worked there. Let's see, where else did I work in Europe? And worked in Italy once, up in northern Italy. Worked in Tanzania, and worked in the beautiful Arusha, Tanzania. That was mind-changing over there.
Wow.
Life-changing. I worked in the Philippines and Saipan. And I know I'm forgetting somewhere. Cuba, worked in Cuba.
Wow.
Just, yeah, I've been blessed with some nice experiences.
Now, do you have management? Because you are, number one, you're multi-talented. I imagine you probably hustled that Crooners gig by yourself, but not one man could do all the things you just told me about unless you had some help. So who's helping Bruce Henry out there get out into the world?
Man, nobody.
Wow.
Nobody. You know, it's not to say I haven't had friends, you know, that helped me out. I mean, it was a friend that suggested, you know, if I have a second, can I tell you how I got to Paris?
Yeah.
I got to Paris because this is one of the great life stories for me. There was a friend in Minneapolis, Alain Denet. He said, you need to be in Paris. They'll love you in Paris. So he introduced me to a club owner. And I kept, the club owner was saying, hey, so when you get me a ticket, a round trip ticket, I'll consider that our contract. So I got no ticket. I took off a month worth of work in the middle of a busy season, and no ticket. And so I said, okay, all right. I took the month off. I said, let me go anyway. So I went to the club. I put on my best suit, in fact, the best suit I've ever had. And I went there, but something told me I dragged a giant suitcase of sheet music. And when I got there, this is with no gig, I got to the club, and I see the guy running around. The place is sold out, and there's no band.
Wow.
There's no band. And so, Val, we know the business, it's 20 minutes before showtime, and there's no band.
Right.
And so I go down there, and he was all shocked and sheepish, embarrassed. I'm so sorry I didn't come through. I said, no problem. I said, I noticed you don't have a band. He said, no, there was a car accident in Switzerland. The guy was on his way. I said, hey, look, I can do this for you.
Wow.
You give me 3 guys who read music, and we'll have the time of our lives.
That is, I'm loving this story. Keep going, man.
He said, you can't do it. I said, can you do this? I said, yes, I can. This is what I do. I said, just give me a ride back to the hotel, get my sheet music. So he went, he got a Laotian guy, a French Cameroonian guy, and he got a French-American pianist. And, man, we got held over for 2 more nights. And after that, for a decade, they flew me over there for a decade and let me work around France, wherever I wanted to work.
Wow. Well, some of the great, for decades, since the 30s, guys like Lester Young or Champion Jack Dupree, blues and jazz cats, black cats, they'd go to Europe, and it was so unlike all the segregation in America. They just stayed there because they were treated as artists. So
Yes.
I'm sure they loved Bruce Henry in Paris. I'm sure they did.
Well, I had some fabulous times there, and miss it, as a matter of fact.
I had the honor of playing both in Iceland and Siberia. Both, I like to add, without international incident. But when I got to 1999, a friend of mine who I met in Minneapolis owned a club in Novosibirsk, Siberia, which is the sister city of St. Paul, Minnesota. And it's about the same size, and it's kind of at the same longitude. So it felt like being in Minnesota. So I was booked there for 6 nights, and he picked me up at the airport. He goes, and it was like 24 hours to get there with layovers and flying from Minneapolis and New York and Moscow and then Siberia. And so he said, do you want to go home and sleep, or do you want to go to the club? I got, take me to the club. So there was this bunch of young white guys, maybe, 21 to 31, singing all the Chicago blues, and it sounded like they were a bunch of young white guys, blues musicians from Chicago. So I had my guitar with me. I got up because I was going to sit in with them on the next set, and I started talking to them in the dressing room. None of them spoke English, but they sang phonetically. They sang it perfectly. So have you ever had experiences like that or just that when you're playing with musicians that you don't share the same language, but you still play very well together?
I can't say I've had that experience like that. Can't say it. Wow.
Well, it's true. You know what they say. I mean, from a bigger vantage point that music is, in fact, the universal language,
What I can relate to with that is the fact that I think Stevie Wonder kept me from getting beat up. I was in the Philippines, and which let me add this: I've never been to a more friendlier place,
right?
Anywhere. Beautiful people. These people that I met in this particular, they were out of context or whatever experience. But so I'm at the beach, and being from Chicago, and all of a sudden these guys, they look a little rough around the edges, are surrounding me.
Wow.
7, 8 of them, and being from Chicago, I could tell, oh, these are those boys.
Right. You've seen this before.
And they're just way over the top friendly. And it was, they were getting a little more aggressive as the time went by. It's just me. I'm the only American in sight at this beach. Just me. And I noticed one of them had a ukulele. And I said, oh, you like music? He said, yeah. I said, you guys know any Stevie Wonder? They went, Stevie Wonder. Man, we ended up singing till the sun came down.
Oh, man.
I got a lot of Stevie Wonder songs.
I hope you did my favorite Stevie, My Cherie Amour.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Oh, man.
Yes,
Well,
that
that's
is beautiful.
Bruce Henry, this has been such a delightful conversation. After Crooners tonight, what's your next appearance in the Twin Cities?
My next appearance in the Twin Cities is actually in May with Dean McGraw, just the two of us.
Great.
Just the two of us doing some original music and work on a recording that we're working on.
And what?
Should be out shortly.
And where's that show going to be?
I'm going back and forth between different places. I wish I could say I remembered off the top of my head, but
Well, just all the folks out there that are getting to know Bruce Henry or have known Bruce Henry, just go to bruceahenry.com and let the website figure it out for you. Bruce, have a great gig tonight, and really enjoyable getting to know you a little better. I really look forward to seeing you again in person, and I want you to give me that Chicago tour I've been meaning to take for way too many years.
Well, you're the best, man. This was a fabulous interview, and I'm a big fan of your music as well, man. So I wish you all the best.
Great, and give the great Mary Harris a big hug from me, would you?
I'll do that.
Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. The show was produced by Paul Metza, engineered by Brett Johnson. We'd like to thank our guest, Bruce Henry. That show he was talking about at the end is May 6th at Crooners with the great guitarist Dean McGraw. My book, Alphabet Jazz, Poetry, Prose, Stories, and Songs is out. Get it on Amazon or The Electric Fetus. And I've got a big show coming up, the Women's Club, the music and storytelling series with interviewer Andrea Swenson. March 25th at the Women's Club. Thanks for listening tonight. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.